What is up, fanatics, fan guy addicts? It's your boy, Josh, fan guy, coming back to you with our 11th or 12th installment of the Ultimate Fan Guy. Today we're going to be getting you some more detailed and accurate and complete matchups of what I like and what I don't like this week for Draftkings and daily fantasy. Um, We're going to start with the quarterback position. We're going to go through most of the relevant matchups, and let's see what we come up with. I'll be setting my lineup for the 100K pylon as we go along. So, feel free to follow along at home, but you probably don't want to pick my exact lineup because then we're going to be sharing the money. Here we go. Deshaun Watson, Houston at Indy. I think Deshaun Watson's an okay play, but for 7,000, I think there are much better plays, a little cheaper. Reason for that is Indy's actually looked pretty good against the pass this year. Their defense has been better than it looks with that 21st ranking right there. They shut down Mahomes a few weeks ago really hard, and Mahomes is better than Watson. So while I do understand why Watson's so high on this list, particularly because Houston doesn't run the ball. I mean, they ran the ball great last week against KC. But I just think Indy at home, their defense is going to be okay. So I think Watson has an okay day, but I don't like him for his price. Lamar Jackson, 6,800 at Seattle. I don't like him that much this week. Seattle's got a good defense. They're playing at home. Lamar Jackson's still a young quarterback playing in Seattle. Very tough place to play. I think he's completely overpriced at 6,800. Kyler Murray at the Giants. I like Kyler Murray this week. There are several guys I like that are going to be cheaper than him, so I'm not racing to get Kyler Murray on my lineups. Matter of fact, I don't like a lot of the top quarterbacks you're going to notice as far as price-wise this week, so it's kind of a cool week because I like a lot of the cheaper quarterbacks. But I do think Kyler Murray, of those top three, actually, I like him more than Watson and Jackson this week. He's got a juicy matchup against the Giants, who their defense is really hit or miss. It's in New York. Arizona does have a high-paced, up-tempo offense. So I definitely think that Kyler Murray has the potential for a decent game. Russell Wilson at home against Baltimore. I'm kind of on the fence about this guy because Russell Wilson has just been money this year. Baltimore, they're in Seattle. This is a game that I don't want to say I could see Russell Wilson having an okay day here. That being said, he's another one I'm not racing to get him on my lineups, but if you wanted to play Russell Wilson, I think he's a fine play at home against Baltimore. In a game where they might throw the ball a little bit. We'll see. He's got his legs too. Josh Allen against Miami. So this, I can see why they have him so high. It's because they're playing against Miami. The thing is, Buffalo's got a really good defense. They're at home. They're probably not going to let Miami score. So you would assume Buffalo's going to get at least a 2-score lead pretty early in this one. And they're just going to run the ball. They're going to give it to Singletary and Gore. They really need to get Singletary involved more on the offense. I'll get to him when I talk about running backs in a second because I don't quite trust that situation yet because it just feels like they're feeding Frank Gore for whatever reason, even though Singletary is by far the superior back. But we'll get to that in a second. So Josh Allen, I think he's an okay play. I think he could be good for 2 touchdowns in this one. But again, there's just, as you're about to see, there's a lot of quarterbacks below him that I like even more, like way more. But if you wanted to take a flyer on Josh Allen for 6,500, I wouldn't hate you for it. I wouldn't tell you you're dumb or bad or stupid or anything like that. It's not a terrible play. He has a good matchup. But again, you got to follow the game script, and I don't see this game script dictating that Buffalo has to throw the ball a ton. Aaron Rodgers at home against Oakland. It says he's questionable. He's going to play. So, I mean, in years past, I would say, yeah, fire up Rodgers. He's playing Oakland at home, but he hasn't looked like the Aaron Rodgers of old this year. They have a lot of wide receiver problems right now. Looks like all their guys are going to play except for Devontae Adams. So he's going to have quite a bit of his weapons back. But I just don't see him blowing up in this one. I mean, he could, but Oakland's not the worst defense. Gruden coaches them pretty well. I kind of like the running backs on both sides of this game, to be honest, more so than Aaron Rodgers. And again, I just think there are guys who are going to put up more that are cheaper. So, Matt Ryan at home against the Rams. This one was the one I'm the most maybe on the fence about the whole way. Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons are throwing the ball a ton. The Rams have a very strong front. They're going to be able to shut down the Atlanta subpar running game. So Matt Ryan is going to have to throw in this one. I think Matt Ryan, in retrospect, is actually not the worst play this week. He's 6,300. I do like a couple guys below him that are going to be a little cheaper. And we don't know if Jalen Ramsey is going to be playing this week, which is very relevant. If Jalen Ramsey fires up for the Rams, then he's going to be on Julio. And that changes our receivers that we're looking at. But I still think Ryan has to throw quite a bit in this one. And he could be a great play. Talking myself through it, I might play him in a few lineups or one lineup this week just in case. He's been money this year. He's number 2 quarterback on the year. Next, Jared Goff in Atlanta, that same game. I like Goff way more than I like Matt Ryan. And this is saying a lot considering Goff really screwed me in several of my actual fantasy leagues this past week where I'm not a guy to draft quarterbacks early, so I kind of have to do what I have to do. And Goff was like really the best option I had this past week when he just got like less than a point. This week, I think he bounces back in a huge way against one of the 2 worst pass defenses in the league in Atlanta. Definitely like Jared Goff this week. He's one of my top few quarterbacks, and he's 6,200. Danny Dimes, 6,100. Oh, how the fallen have become mighty. This guy was like 5,000 the past couple of weeks, but Draftkings is pretty good with regards to they are here with regards to hiking his price up this week because he's playing against the Arizona Cardinals, who are the worst pass defense in the league. Danny Dimes, I like him a lot this week. I think he could easily have a good game. He does have Saquon back. Saquon is immensely overpriced, and I do think they might lean on Saquon, which lowers Jones' upside a little. But I do think that the Arizona-New York Giants game is probably one of the 2 highest scoring games of the week. So Daniel Jones for 6,100, definitely an okay play. Garoppolo at Washington. I don't like Garoppolo. I just don't. Like, you look at his numbers this year, I don't know how they have the nerve to put him 6,000. The dude hasn't had a game. His highest game from a fantasy standpoint is 23.64. His next highest game is not even 15 points. Putting this guy at 6,000 is, even against the bad Washington, it just seems like a little bit of a stretch. And I think their algorithm really missed the mark here because Garoppolo should never be an expensive quarterback. Yes, he plays for a good team, but he plays for a run heavy team. So no, I don't play Jimmy G, and I would not recommend ever playing Jimmy G until he shows the ability to actually put up 20 points a game. Kirk Cousins at Detroit. So if you've been following my show, the last 2 weeks I was high on Kirk Cousins. I was really high on him last week, and I was high on him the week before. And I was right. This week, I actually think he has an okay day again. I don't think he does what he did last week. I think it's going to be similar to what he did 2 weeks ago. He seems to be getting his groove back like Stella. Seems to be getting a little bit of confidence back. So I definitely like Kirk Cousins, even though he's playing a pretty good Detroit defense. It's a game where I think they're going to have to throw. And he's been looking pretty good. So while I'm not racing to put Kirk Cousins on my team, as you can see, I think he's a serviceable quarterback. My problem with him is that you can get Goff and Jones and Ryan for just a little bit more, and I think that those 3 are significantly better plays. Significantly. Brissett. I like Brissett this week against Houston at home. I truly do. I don't think this is going to be a Marlon Mack kind of day. I think this is going to be a Brissett to T.Y. Hilton all day kind of day. So I think Brissett is priced pretty fairly for this matchup. He's got a pretty good matchup at home against Houston. Jacoby Brissett is. I wish he had a few more receiving targets that were good, but I like Brissett this week. Phillip Rivers at Tennessee. Phillip Rivers, man, he's just, again, I said this about him a week or two ago, and he's just steady Eddie, man. He's pretty consistent. He doesn't have huge days. He's had one really terrible day. The thing is, Tennessee's defense is pretty good. They're actually really good and really underrated. And they're going through some quarterback controversy, so it's always interesting to see how our team's going to react to that and if their defense is going to step up to help Tannehill. I think they do, so I don't like Rivers this week, but, there are worse plays. Andy Dalton at Jackson. Look, if you're playing Andy Dalton this year in daily fantasy, you're messing up. I'm just going to leave it at that. Gardner Minshew at Cincinnati. Minshew I love this week. It just must be that Uncle Rico mustache because I feel like I'm high on this guy every week, and he's putting up similar to Jimmy G numbers. But this is the matchup against the Bengals. The only thing the Bengals do on defense is shut down number one receivers. So would not be surprised if they try to focus in on DJ Chark, and it's more of a day-to-day Westbrook. And as you're going to see in a second, my top running back comes from Jacksonville as well of the week. So I'm not going to put Minshew on this lineup, but for his price tag, I think he's an excellent play. Bridgewater at Chicago. He struggles, man. He's been doing okay with the Saints as a game manager, but he hasn't really been playing. He played one really lights out game, but other than that, he's just been kind of meh. Serviceable backup. It's been getting the job done, but not for fantasy purposes. Stafford. Man, I like Stafford at home this week against Minnesota. I just think the Minnesota defense is pretty tough, but this is a game where I like his price tag, should I say. I just like the fact you can get him for $5,200 in a game that Detroit might be trailing and having to throw a little bit. So if you were to play Stafford, it's not a terrible play. Not as terrible as I've seen some people think. Trubisky, New Orleans has been lights out. Trubisky's been on dumpster fire. So there's no way I'm playing Trubisky. Derek Carr at Green Bay. I don't really like Derek Carr this week, even though they might have to throw if they fall down behind. I actually think this is going to be more of a Josh Jacobs kind of day, so we'll get to that in a second. So I'm going to fade Carr here. And those are, and then obviously we have our Washington quarterback, Case Keenum, playing against the very tough San Francisco team. I would not recommend that. We don't even know how the Tennessee quarterback is going to shake out, so don't like that. And if you're playing the Miami quarterback, you are messing up. So in this particular lineup, I think I'm going to go with either Ryan Goff or Jones. You know what? I'm going to go with Matt Ryan on this lineup. Again, second highest scoring QB of the year, playing against. I don't like that they have Ramsey now. I don't know. I got to rethink that. But he's got so many targets. Yeah, I could. Okay, so here's my thing. I'm running a lot of Jared Goff this week, and I'm just gonna go Matt Ryan. Let's go Matty Ice. Let's go Matty Ice. All right. Excuse me. On to running backs. Saquon Barkley at home against Arizona. I like this guy. Of course, he's back. He's a brilliant running back. He's also 9,000, 8,900. If you're spending 8,900 on one player, you're in trouble. Like you're really having to skimp elsewhere. I can never see spending that much on a single player. Ever. So obviously that's how I feel about that. But yeah, sure, he's a good play. Dalvin Cook at Detroit. Looking at this, I didn't realize Detroit was so bad against the run. I actually thought Patricia was pretty good against the run, but it looks like they're shutting down the pass more. Um, so yeah, I guess I would say I like Dalvin Cook a lot this week too. But again, at 8,000, that is so much. That's so much. So I mean, yeah, sure. If you have 8,000 extra dollars on your budget just sitting around, sure, Dalvin Cook's a great play, but I can't get behind it. Same with DJ, man. Look, I've been on the DJ train week after week after week. If you've been watching, and I've been right week after week after week, at least to some extent. Dude's been rock steady this year. He's playing against the Giants, who are not the best team defensively speaking. Eek. It actually looks like he's super questionable right now, so keep your eye on Chase Edmonds Sunday morning. If Johnson cannot play, I would definitely recommend inserting Chase Edmonds into your lineup because he is probably going to be, he's 4,700. He'd be a brilliant play this week. So I'm going to be monitoring that situation Sunday morning because if DJ can't play, you could best believe I'm going to be rearranging a few of my lineups to get Chase Edmonds in there just because of the extreme value he provides in this game. So Alvin Kamara out for the week. This is a huge hit for the Saints this week as a team because he was going to be what they were going to need to beat the Bears. So now they might lose to the Bears, which sucks for me because I'm a Saints fan. But moving on. Aaron Jones against Oakland. So here's my worry with this guy, and I'm just going to keep it brutally honest with you. Aaron Jones has been splitting carries with Jamal Williams. And in fact, Jamal Williams has been looking better in a lot of cases. So for 7,100, while I do like Jones and his upside and his potential against Oakland, who actually tends to be pretty tough against the run, I will not take him for 7,100 when he only plays 50% of his team snaps. That's just silly. Not when I can get this next guy who is immediately getting this. My number one running back of the week, Mr. Leonard Fournette. Everybody keeps talking smack when I keep saying him, and you know what? He's been coming through for me. The reason is, man, volume. Volume, volume, volume. If I cannot beat anything into your heads enough, let me beat that into your heads. Volume. Leonard Fournette gets 90% of that team's offensive snaps. 90% plus. There's really only 3 or 4 other guys in the league who get that sort of offensive snap share. Fournette is the centerpiece of that offense. Adding to that, they're playing a very bad Cincinnati defense this week. As we were talking about with the quarterback situation, the only thing Cincinnati does is shut down opposing number one receivers. Now, there is a chance that they target Fournette instead of the number one receiver, who's probably, I don't even know who it is for Jacksonville. I guess it's Chark, but it could be Westbrook. You just don't know. But Fournette's volume and the fact that I think Jacksonville gets a lead and is going to lean on him, and the fact he's really getting involved in the pass game, which is amazing for fantasy purposes. Fournette is a stud this week. He's 7,000, which I think is a fair price for him. I don't like spending that much on a player, but if I'm going to, give me the guy who's going to be able to put up Saquon-like numbers for 2,000 less. Moving on, Mark Ingram at Seattle. Ingram, man, my thing about Ingram is just that he doesn't play enough of his team snaps, really. They really do get Justice Hill and Gus Edwards involved. And Lamar Jackson ran for 150 yards last week. So Ingram's usage is just so concerning for me. Like he had one big game this year. The rest of the games have been kind of meh, like okay. But he does not get the volume, which is what I was just talking about with Fournette. He doesn't get the volume to warrant this price tag. Next, Chris Carson at home against Baltimore. I kind of like Carson this week. I think Carson's a fine play this week. I'll leave it at that. Matchup's okay at home against Baltimore. Fucking McDonald's put tartar sauce on my hot and spicy when I told them not to. It's giving me a cough today because I think I'm allergic to it or something. So sorry about that. So I like Chris Carson this week. Todd Gurley at Atlanta. I like Gurley if he's playing. Gurley looks like he's going to play this week. I have to think after what happened to LA last week that they're probably going to use Gurley a little bit this week if he plays. He should play. If he doesn't play, Henderson becomes a slam dunk play. Yeah, I like Gurley this week. I like Gurley this week. If I'm gonna have at least, I can almost guarantee you that one Ram. I mean, if it's golf, I'll have him paired with a receiver. But you can pretty much bet that one Ram is going to be on all my lineups this week because Atlanta is just bad at defense. So on this particular lineup, it might be Gurley, but I'll figure that out in a second. I still don't like his price tag because I already have such an expensive running back in Fournette. But I do think Gurley has a lot of upside this week in a game where they might lean on him, might throw to him a lot against Atlanta. Now I'm going to group Eckler and Melvin Gordon together on this one. And just follow that up with one word. No. We don't know who's getting the workload. We don't know what's going on with that backfield. Combined with the fact they're playing a very decent Tennessee defense. I'm not playing Melvin Gordon or Austin Eckler this week. Marlon Mack at home against Houston. You know what I hate about Mack the most is that they don't pass to him. He's just so not involved in the passing game. And this is PPR scoring. And this is a game where there's a receiver in this game I like a lot. So that I think is going to be on almost every one of my rosters because ever since, like Houston, I'll get to that in a second when I get to receivers. But not as high on Mack this week. I don't like his lack of involvement in the passing game. And Houston's got a pretty strong front to combat the run. Derrick Henry at home against Chargers. Now, funny because I just said I didn't like Mack because his lack of involvement in the passing game. Derrick Henry is also not involved in the passing game. However, Tennessee's having a really bad time at quarterback right now. I think Tannehill's starting this week after coming in for a benched Mariota last week. Their passing game is really bad. So in this particular case, I think they have to lean on Henry. I think he's their only chance to win this game. And with Tannehill in there, we don't know what Henry's passing game usage is going to be like. Maybe Tannehill is going to dump off more than Mariota did to him. Maybe they're going to let him run more wheel routes. We just don't know. So I do like Derrick Henry this week because he is going to be the absolute focal point of that offense. And the Chargers defense hasn't really been that good against the run this year. I'm going to skip over Malcolm Brown because he's doubtful to play. Tevin Coleman, I mean, look, bruh, if you're playing a San Francisco running back, you're throwing a dart at a board because they have like 4 guys they use. They have Coleman, they have Breda, they have Mostert, they have Wilson Jr., and they use them all at the goal line. So while it did look like Coleman, you know what? Let me pardon this thing, but I want to check something out with y'all. Let's see, San Francisco. I guess misspelled that. Whatever. Okay, let's take a look. Let's see how they split it up. Okay, so Tevin Coleman did get 55% of his team snaps last week. Matt Breda got 36. And Jeff Wilson, worth noting now, it is worth noting, Jeff Wilson has not been used since Coleman has come back. So he's lost his usage. It does look like they are leaning on Coleman Breda as their big bang. So I guess Coleman's an okay play. He's got a really good matchup against Washington. Matter of fact, I kind of like Coleman this week. like I said, they're a run-first team. He's been pretty rock steady in terms of production. They're going to put it on Washington. It's just a matter of, let's say they start putting it on Washington. Is it going to be Coleman, Breda, or then because they have a 2-score lead, are they going to say, well, now we'll get Mostert and Wilson in there? So I think Tevin Coleman is a real weird play because he does have a great matchup and a great price tag. So I kind of do like him. But you don't know if he or Breda, I mean, is gonna be getting in the end zone. You don't know. You just don't know, and they keep them both pretty fresh. So I'm kind of talking myself into this Coleman thing. He might actually end up on this particular lineup, but we'll see in a second. Wayne Gallman Jr. Don't know why they still have him at 5,500. With Saquon in, Gallman is completely obliterated from fantasy relevance. Singletary. I love Singletary, and if there was a week that I wanted to roll Singletary out, it would be this week against Miami. The man, my problem with Singletary, as I just showed you with that, is even when he was healthy, right? Oh man, this is the kind of play that can make or break your week. It's these little things. I love Singletary this week. He's got the best matchup in the league in a game where I think Buffalo leads and they're going to run. Is he fully healthy? They're saying he's fully healthy. But for some reason, Buffalo has this fascination with Frank Gore. Even though he's old and he can't run fast. And he's a fifth of the running back that Singletary is. So I kind of run into the same problem with Singletary and Gore as I do. Well, I'm not playing Frank Gore. But that means he's probably going to get 2 touchdowns, just noted. I run into the same problem with Singletary as I do with Tevin Coleman and the Matt Breda situation. It's you just don't know who's going to get the work. And I think if there was ever a week to deploy Singletary, this is it. So he also, right now on this particular lineup, he and Tevin Coleman are at the top of my list for guys that I'm thinking about putting in. Matt Breda, we just kind of covered him. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over Devontae Freeman. Devontae Freeman finally had a decent week last week, and I called that one too. So, and looking at it, he's actually, his last 3 games were 18, 18, 26. So he's not exactly been doing that bad. He's just been really big in their passing game. It seems like they're dumping off a lot of passes to him, which is good. So, yeah, I could get behind Freeman. I could get behind Freeman at 5,400. He's another one that's going, him. I'm putting him in the same category as Singletary and Coleman right now. I like Freeman this week. Yeah, he's been pretty rock steady. He's playing against a Rams team at home. Not too bad. Breda, again, we just touched on that. I just don't know. He only plays 33% of his team snaps now that Coleman's back. 33% of offensive snaps is not enough to instill a lot of confidence in me. Frank Gore, we already talked about that. Latavius Murray. Okay, so Latavius Murray, value-wise, because we know that Kamara is out, Latavius Murray is going to be the workhorse this week for the New Orleans Saints when they go to Chicago. For that reason alone, and again, kind of what we were talking about with Fournette, volume, man. Volume. So do I like Latavius Murray this week? Yeah, I do. He's going to make his way onto several of my lineups simply because even though I don't like the matchup against Chicago in Chicago, I think with Bridgewater at the helm, he's going to get a sizable workload. And as a result, should have a pretty good fantasy day for his price tag. So, yeah, I do like Latavius Murray. Kerryon Johnson, I don't like as much. Minnesota's real tough against the run. And Johnson's been doing okay lately. Yeah, he's been pretty steady Eddie. I don't hate him. It's just I don't like him as much as a lot of the guys I've just been talking about, including the next guy I'm about to talk about, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, man, again. So my worry with him comes back to what we were kind of talking about with this stuff, and that is you look at his snap count. He plays about on an average week. He looks like he plays about 70%, anywhere between 60 to 70% of his team snaps, which is okay for a running back of this price tag. He's not as involved in the pass game, which I do not like. Though they have been targeting him at least a few times the last few games. He just ran all over Chicago in his last game, which, going back to the Latavius Murray thing, worth noting, Chicago can be run on. So I like Josh Jacobs this week, and he's cheaper than all those other options we just talked about. He's playing against Green Bay in a game where my only worry is that Oakland falls behind a lot here, and they have to kind of abandon the run. But I do also think that they've had way more success this year the better he's done. Yeah, 100%. They've won all 3 games where he's gotten over 15 touches, and they've lost 2 games where he hasn't. And if you don't think that's relevant, that's relevant. Like, it's very relevant. So Josh Jacobs, probably my running back value of the week at only 5,000, and he's pretty freaking good. So, I think it's pretty crazy that he's cheaper than Latavius. That's just crazy. Does DraftKings know something I don't? There's no reason Jacobs should be that cheap this week. There's just no way. I'll take it. The problem whenever they have a player of his caliber that cheap, it worries the heck out of me because I tend to find them being on a lot of my lineups. And if they happen to have a bad day, it can really screw up your whole program. So quite frankly, there's a lot of running backs I like this week. I like Jacobs. I like Singletary. I like Coleman. I like Freeman, all for their price tags. I like Henry. I love Fournette. I hate Fournette's price tag. On my next lineup, I'm going to have 2 cheaper running backs, and I'm going to fade Fournette because I think Fournette's on all my lineups right now. And I don't want to go all in on him just in case Cincy decides to do what they do sometimes, which is take out one person on the other team and ignore everyone else. So, Cincy would probably beat Carolina because they would just be like, oh, McCaffrey's not going to do anything today. And that's all Carolina has. So I actually think they would be well matched up against Carolina, but I'm getting off track. Excuse me. Is there any other running backs we're talking about? Joe Mixon, 5,000. He's the same price as Josh Jacobs, which is just mind-blowing. Mixon, I can't trust him until he does something. Yeah, I like his volume for his price tag, but until he actually has a decent week, I can't get behind him. Jamal Williams, same thing with Aaron Jones, man. You just don't know which one of them two is going to get the work. They both seem highly involved, and I just can't trust either of them. David Montgomery against New Orleans. I actually like Montgomery, but not this week. New Orleans' defense has been really good lately. Chase Edmonds for 4,700. If David Johnson doesn't go, you get that man in there. Super good value. Carlos Hyde had a brilliant week last week. I don't think he repeats this week in Indy. Yeah, no. Worth monitoring that situation. Tariq Cohen, okay. Nobody below that's worth playing. I'll comment on Adrian Peterson and say, because I want to say he had a pretty good week last week. He's playing in San Francisco this week. So I called Adrian Peterson last week. I was right on that with his price tag and everything. But I don't like him as much this week. Kenyon Drake's also not worth playing. Okay. So that's our running backs. On to receivers. Julio, questionable at home against LA. Man, this has a lot to do with whether or not looks like they're trying to get Jalen Ramsey in the game. And if it happens, he's just going to shadow Julio, which lowers Julio's upside. So while I do have Matt Ryan as my quarterback, and I might change that because this is a weird situation where I might leave Matt Ryan in and not stack him. Simply because I think he's going to spread the ball around a lot to Sanu, to Calvin Ridley, maybe a little bit to Julio, to Hooper. But I don't know if any one of them has a huge game, but I think Matt Ryan as a whole could have a big game. Michael Thomas against Chicago. Nope. Not with Bridgewater at the helm, even though Michael Thomas has been pretty good this year. He's playing against a Chicago defense that's very tough against the pass. So there's no way I'm spending $8,000 on that. D-Hop. Man, D-Hop was probably finally going to do something this week just because I'm not going to have him all over my lineups. So that's worth noting that D-Hop is probably going to go off just because I'm not playing him because I have been trusting him and he's been just letting me down. Would not be surprised at all if he had a big game here. Devontae Adams is out. Cooper Kupp. I like Kupp. I just don't like his price tag. I think he gets a lot of work this week. I think he does okay. But because I've already spent a little bit on a few other players, Kupp, it's tough for me with the teams that have like a trifecta of receivers like the Rams, like the Falcons. It's really tough for me to play those guys in DFS simply because you don't know which one is going to go off. And you just don't know. So it feels too much like throwing in a dartboard to me and not making a calculated, educated decision. So I do like Cooper Kupp this week, and I think Goff is going to right the ship this week and do well. And there is a Rams receiver I like this week. Now that I think about it, that's probably going to make my lineup, but it's not Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's their volume guy, and the Rams have been torched by the deep ball this year. So, the Falcons have been torched by the deep ball this year. So when I play a receiver against the Falcons, I'm going to go with the deep threat, which is going to be way cheaper too. Adam Thielen at Detroit. I like Thielen. I think he's turning it around the same way I think Cousins is turning it around. My problem with Thielen is that he's got a pretty tough matchup this week. And he's still very, very expensive. So I just don't have the budget on my personal lineup here. But I do think Thielen's okay, but I think there's going to be better values that might even be cheaper. And I was big on Thielen the last 2 weeks, and he did okay. Keenan Allen at Tennessee. I'm waiting for this guy to show back up. He started off the year on such fire. And the last 3 games, his targets have just plummeted. He started out 10, 15, 17, and now 5, 6, 6. So Keenan Allen has really fallen from grace. He is due for a bounce back game. I'll give him that for sure. But his price tag is still a little high for a guy for me who hasn't gotten more than 6 targets in the last 3 weeks in any single game. Lockett at Baltimore. This is another guy. You got to keep an eye on the targets. Look, man. His targets the last 3 games are 4, 4, and 5. I just don't like it. I don't like his lack of volume. So I think it's crazy they have him this high up because he's not getting that many targets. So I don't like Lockett that much this week. AJ Green's out. Stephon Diggs. Again, I use the failed logic a lot of times that if a guy had a 50-point week last week or whatever, he's probably not going to do it again this week. Firmly feel that way about Diggs this week. I think he could have a big game. So could Thielen. I mean, you never know with those two. And I do like Cousins, but Detroit's defense isn't really bad against the pass. They're slightly worse against the run. So I think it's more of a Dalvin Cook kind of day. So Diggs for that price tag, nah. Will Fuller, the man who can't keep his hands on the ball when they're thrown right into his hands for touchdowns. I could see Houston and Indy being a pretty high-scoring game. So I like Will Fuller, I guess. But there's a receiver in that game I like even more who's about to come up that's cheaper. So I'm gonna go for that. But yeah, Will Fuller, if he could start putting the stickum on his gloves and actually catching the passes when he's wide open in the end zone, who knows? Maybe he'll have another 50-point week. But until then, I'm not going to trust him. Scary Terry McLaurin. Not against San Francisco. I just can't do it. Even though I think the volume's there and he's looked pretty freaking good this year. He's been hit or miss. He's actually been pretty freaking steady. I just can't get behind him against San Francisco. It's just not a good matchup. Fitzgerald against New York. Like Fitz. I like Fitz this week. I think Arizona New York is a really high-scoring game. Particularly if David Johnson sits, they'll probably have to lean on their pass game a little bit more, which is they're already a high pass team. So yeah, I do. I like Fitz at 6,100. DJ Chark. Look at this. Cincinnati, the freaking worst team in the league, really, next to Miami or Washington maybe. They're number one against the pass. All they do is protect the pass. And you wonder why I like Fournette so much this week? All they do is shut down opposing receivers, and it seems like they do everything they can to do that. So tough for me to trust Chark, but I kind of want to buck. I like Chark this week. I can't even believe I'm saying that. I like everybody who's playing against Cincinnati, but Chark by the numbers is the worst play. This guy's immediately getting inserted. So this guy's I'm going to feast or famine off of him this week, and that is T.Y. Hilton. I'm going to have to leave him off a few lineups just to cover my butt in case he gets hurt or something. But T.Y., man, I know what he does to the Texans. Like I said, I moved here, a few years back, and T.Y. Hilton does bad things to the Texans every game. Every game they play, this man torches, and I mean torches, the Texans. Yes, it's not Andrew Luck. Yes, they don't have a lot of other targets that are worthy. But T.Y. Hilton has this magical thing that he does to the Texans, and he just annihilates them. So I like T.Y. Hilton, obviously, this week. Robert Woods. Like I said, I like all the Rams receivers this week. They're okay. They're all okay plays. I don't know who's going to get the work. You never know that kind of stuff. But for me, I'm going to take the Rams receiver who's the cheapest and the biggest deep threat because that's what Atlanta seems to struggle with. So Robert Woods, I just don't know, man. You just don't know. His target share has been up and down. Yeah, I'm not going to play him here, but I don't think he's a terrible play. He's just not that great a play. Kenny Golladay for 5,800. I like Golladay. I do. I think Detroit throws this game. Minnesota runs this game, and Golladay is obviously their number one guy. Now, worth noting, he is squaring off against Xavier Rhodes, who is a pretty damn good cornerback that might shadow him all day. So I think Galladay's an okay play. I don't think he, by the numbers, he doesn't have a great matchup. It could be more of a Marvin Jones, T.J. Hockenson sort of day. But Galladay's okay, I guess. Okay, so Sterling Shepard is out. Marquise Brown for Baltimore against Seattle. I can't trust him until he shows me something. I do like Tyler Boyd this week. Jalen Ramsey is not playing for Jacksonville anymore. This is a game that Jacksonville should have a lead. They're going to be leaning on Fournette with their lead. I think Cincy's going to have to throw. I think especially because Boyd didn't get a lot of work last week. I think he gets it back on track this week against Jacksonville at home. I do like Tyler Boyd. Allen Robinson, I do not like. He's going to be up against Marshawn Lattimore, and he's going to have Trubisky throwing him the ball. Trubisky's terrible. Allen Robinson's good, but so is Lattimore. This is I'm really fading most players in the New Orleans Chicago game. The only guy I might consider playing is going to be Latavius Murray. The rest of those offenses are too inconsistent and too bad to trust. John Brown, Buffalo against Miami. Okay, this guy could have a 90-yard touchdown reception in this game. I want to preface that. So, but I tend to think Buffalo is going to lean a little bit more on the run in this one. Though I do think John Brown is a great play at his 5,500 price tag. And he might even find a way he will find a way in a few of my lineups. Just not sure. This is a good week to do it. So I don't know. Yeah, just don't know. I like John Brown. Brandon Cooks. I like Brandon Cooks a lot this week. He's the Rams receiver I was talking about. The Atlanta struggles with deep passes. I could see this being a Brandon Cooks kind of day. I could definitely. I think he gets his first touchdown of the year. Maybe he's already hit pay dirt once. Yeah, he's hit pay dirt once. Back in week 2 against New Orleans, and I called that one. That's crazy. So yeah, I do. I think Cooks has a good day today. This coming game, I truly believe that. He's my favorite of the Rams receivers, so I'm going to go ahead and slot him in, take a shot with him. Next, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley could have a good day. Obviously, I have Matt Ryan up here, so I do believe in the Atlanta's passing game this week. But I don't. Ridley's volume really concerns me. Valdez Scantling. Devontae Adams is out, and Scantling has not stepped up, so I do not trust him. Christian Kirk's highly questionable. I prefer Fitz. Kirk's a lot cheaper in what should be a very high-scoring game against New York, but I can't get behind Christian Kirk. Marvin Jones Jr., because of what I said about Galladay and not having a great matchup, it really does set Jones Jr. up for a pretty okay setup, but I don't like his volume lately. They haven't really been using him. Geronimo Allison, Green Bay's receiving core right now is just all kind of, we don't know what's going on. Day Westbrook could have a good game simply because they're going to be keying in on maybe Chark. That's what they do. Westbrook's more of their slot guy. So, yeah, I think Westbrook could have an okay day. DK Metcalf. Yeah, maybe. I mean, his price tag's okay. He just doesn't scream at me as a great play. But, same with the San Francisco receivers like Goodwin. Just don't know what's up with Goodwin. Cole Beasley. Sorry. That was an important text. Cole Beasley, no. I mean, I'm just going to be real. I don't like anybody below that point. Yeah, I'll just cut it off there. I don't like anybody below that point. Tight ends. I like Kittle. Sure, he's playing against Washington. Little expensive. I love Evan Ingram this week. He's so expensive, though. Man, I hate how expensive he is. Evan Ingram is my top tight end for the week, for sure. Hooper, way cheaper. I'm going to run the Hooper train again. Why not? Just because he's so much cheaper, but I do like Evan Ingram the most this week. Mark Andrews is a fine play at Seattle. Waller's questionable against Green Bay. I like his volume. Graham at Oakland, not crazy about him. Hunter Henry had a great day last week. Not really sure what that's going to translate to. Delaney Walker always has potential if he plays. I do like Gerald Everett this week for 3,700 in any lineup. I said I'll have a Rams in all my lineups, so Everett's fine play if I didn't have Cooks. The lowest tight end I would play is Hawkinson for 3,600 against Minnesota. I do think they have to throw the ball a lot. I actually could see Hawkinson have a pretty good day this week. Man, it's tough to play Hooper again with everything he's been doing, man. Guess I'll try to quote unquote ride the hot hand. Defenses, I like all the expensive defenses this week. Bills, love the Bills against Miami. Love the Niners against Washington. I like both the Saints and the Bears defense. They're both way cheaper. That's about it. I think I'm going to play Saints, Bears, Bills, or 49ers in virtually every lineup. On this particular lineup, with no Kamara, and no, I'm not playing Murray on this one, so I'm actually going to play the Bears defense this week, which frees up 6,000 average for my next two players. I still need a receiver. I like Fitzgerald. I just wish he had some bigger games this year so far. Let me roll the. I'm gonna roll the Tyler Boyd train, and then I got 6,500 for my last play, which means I'm gonna go two tight ends this week on this lineup. We're gonna roll the Evan Ingram. I love Evan Ingram this week. So there you have it. There's my lineup. We covered most of the matchups. I was a little short with the defenses because there's really not a lot to say other than I like the Bills, I like the 49ers, I like the Bears, and I like the Saints. So, that's what's up. So that was our extensive Draftkings coverage. We kept it under an hour this week. That was my other goal. That's why I kind of started hurrying towards the end, trying to keep them a little shorter for you guys. So hopefully, you got a little something out of this, and you can make some money this week. Hopefully, we all can. Much love, and best of freaking luck.